Hey all, if you're not caught up to the latest episode, you might not have heard the good news, but our Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise site is open for the holidays. So if you're looking to get your loved one some Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise, head to our shop. Or if you're interested in asking your loved ones for some Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise for yourself, head to ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com and stock up. All right, on with the show.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 270 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 44 of A Feast for Crows, that's Jaime 7.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers. Then we will spoil things for you. Regardless, we'll hopefully provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly, and a Happy New Year?
Happy New Year to you, my friend. I'm doing all right. You and I both enjoyed a nice long respite from our work here in GOH.
So much so that I was literally glad to see you when this call started.
Wow. Do I feel flattered or what?
I jest. It was nice. It was nice to get a break. I feel revitalized.
And I took the Monday and Tuesday before Christmas and the Thursday and Friday after New Year off.
2 weeks off, didn't you?
Yes, over the cost of 4 days, I had a total of 16 days away from work, including weekends, to just do whatever I wanted to do. Plus, we had already recorded our last GOH episode for the season, and you were editing, so...
I will say, I thought you did a bang-up job of the outtake episode. It was very amusing. I enjoyed it very much. My favourite one was the one that I'm sure nobody else enjoyed, but I really enjoyed it, which was the torturous discussion of whether or not the Jon Snow becoming Lord Commander of the Night's Watch was in fact a spoiler. All the way through, I remembered that conversation of like, just answer the question. And then finally, when we cut back to the actual episode, we were laughing about the fact we'd been so long away. It wasn't funny to anyone but me, but I was cracking up listening to that.
You had to be there.
I will say, I'm pleased on some levels, embarrassed on most, that you would include my singing in the outtakes. Not sure if I'd had some editorial control, I would have chosen the song which confessed my desire to dress in women's clothes. That's...
I can only go with the songs that you give me. You got to give me more songs. I need more choices.
So yes, if you didn't hear it, I recommend the outtake show. It was good.
Yeah, that was fun. That's always fun. It's fun collecting them through the year. Yeah. I had a nice long break. It was really good. Ethan was here for over a week, so all four of us were together for under one roof for more than a week, which was really, really nice for me and for the rest of us. So maybe the kids less so than Stacy and me, but parents who have had kids that have flown the coop, you know what it means when we're all together. So that was very nice. And I read 2 books that were not A Song of Ice and Fire related over this break.
Wow. What the heck?
Well, one of them it's called All Systems Red. It was the one you recommended. It's the first book of that Murderbot Diaries. I did. It was very small. It was only like 146 pages. So,
like most of those books are all very short, but there's one, like the 5th or 6th one is 400 pages for some reason.
Wow. Breaks the trend there.
Sure.
The other one was called And Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. And honestly, in all full disclosure, I haven't actually finished it yet. But I have been reading it and enjoying reading something, just changing up my pace a little bit. So
I'm reading a book, a nonfiction book called Range by a guy called David Epstein. And it's interesting. It's about how people who don't specialize early end up being more rounded and better at things. And it contrasts the story of Tiger Woods and Roger Federer, because Tiger Woods was very much a specialist from an early age. I mean,
the age of like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I read that he won his first under-11s golf tournament at the age of 4.
Wow. That doesn't surprise me.
Which is astonishing.
Right.
I mean, that might be, of all the things he's achieved, that might be the top one. That's like, right. he's the Mozart of golf, you know? Like,
he really is, in some ways, yes, absolutely.
But Federer was the exact opposite. Federer didn't settle on tennis until he was like 17. He played all kinds of different sports. And it was saying, hey, they're both paths to greatness, potentially.
Right.
But the sort of like the thesis of the book is that the Federer path is actually the one that most of us should be on. And one of the aspects of this book is that it contrasted the British and the American university system. And I've always maintained that I loved and cared about the British university system because you specialize very early. And I wanted to specialize. I wanted to get away from all the subjects I wasn't very good at.
Right. But I remember you telling me this. It's very specialized.
I've always maintained it. Americans, of course, they go to university and change their majors and flop around. But apparently it leads to them being very good at creative problem solving, whereas I am stunted and twisted.
Those are the words that come to mind when I think of you, stunted and twisted.
But actually, I have had a career change since my university days, so that's probably helped me to have a little bit more range. So I'm probably escaped it. But actually, one of the things that it said, and I never really thought about this, is because children of 17 years of age decide what they're going to study as their major in university, the only things they know are the things they've studied in school.
Yeah.
So they don't know about engineering and economics and interesting majors which are available to them. So I chose chemistry and mathematics because I knew those two things.
Right.
Americans, because they're going out there sampling everything at the buffet,
footloose and fancy free,
right? They choose more exotic and interesting things. And I was like, well, I'd never really thought of it in these terms, but I still think I benefited from the specialization because I just hated everything else. I only liked what I liked.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure each individual person could thrive in either situation,
Yep.
So I told you I was off for 16 days, right?
And you did say that.
16 days, I had less and less, a decreasing list of things to do as the days went on. Leading up to Christmas and then leading up to New Year. But then I had a whole nother week and a half after New Year. And I started to run out of things to do. And I was actually asking Stacy, was there anything else that I said I wanted to do? Because I'm scrounging up things. And so yesterday was my first day back to work. And clearly my mind was not completely ready for real thinking because... So I ran up to Food Lion yesterday at lunch to get a few grocery items. And, I got the items that I needed, and I went to the self-checkout line because, I didn't have that many items. I didn't need assistance with it. So I put in my loyalty number, and I, run all my things through the scanner and put them in the bag, grabbed the receipt, walked, went to the car, was driving home. And on my drive home, because... this factors in. We're currently in no spend January, which is kind of the penance portion from ridiculously overspend holiday season. We kind of tighten things down in January and only buy things that we need.
Is this other people do this too? Or is this you and Stacy?
I don't know. Stacy and I've been doing it for years. It feels really nice when you get that credit card bill and it's like thousands less.
But you christened it. The No Spend January is your invention.
I was Stacy's invention. I don't know if she got it from somewhere or not, quite honestly.
Believe me, I meant Stacy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll ask her. I'll get back to you on that. So I'm on my way home. I'm calculating, what did I spend in this store? And I honestly could not remember. And as I'm driving and thinking about this, I couldn't remember getting my wallet out. I couldn't remember tapping my credit card to the little thing the little pay thing. So I get home.
Wait, stop a second. So no spend January.
Take it to a whole other level.
I misunderstood what you meant.
So I get home.
And then there's theft, my friend.
Right. I get home and I open the bag. I was like, I grabbed a receipt. I grabbed, when you go to a grocery store, at least here where we live, it spits out coupons on a stream.
And that's what you
grabbed. I grabbed a coupon stream and no receipt. I checked my credit card. There was no, pending payment on my credit card or anything. So I go to Stacy and I was like, I think I just stole a bag of groceries. So and she thought that was hilarious.
The irony that you would do it when you were being thrifty. Like, if it had just been February, you'd have stolen hundreds of dollars worth.
Yeah. So what did I do?
I
drove back up to food. I'd already put everything away. I had to get it all back out of the pantry and the fridge, put it back in the bag, take it up there. And I get to the customer service desk with my bag of pilfered goods. And I say to the guy, I've got something really awkward and embarrassing to admit. And he's looking at me like, what is this guy about to say? Yeah. So I told him, and he's like, were you on that machine right there? And I was like, yeah, that's the one. And he's like, oh, yeah, I saw that there was a timed out order there. I just canceled it out. So thank you for coming back. I would have never known that, anything had happened.
Wow.
So, and then he rung me up, and I made sure to actually pay this time.
That is a great story. That's fantastic. And that's so honest of you, because I think I might have gone, give it a couple of hours, see if the police kick down the door, and if they don't.
Right. Oh, well, the bill came to $16.71, so I wasn't. It would have been
the great train robbery. It wasn't.
Right. So clearly, my mind was not ready for real life yet.
That's awesome.
I had to go back up today. I made sure, focused on paying for and grabbing the actual receipt. Oh, goodness.
Well, let's get down to business. How did we leave Jaime Lannister? Last we saw of Jaime, he was unsuccessfully treating with the Blackfish. The subsequent war council was a bust, so he ultimately marched into the Frey camp and fired the incompetent Ryman Frey, and promoted Ryman's son Edwin to head the Frey contingent. He then had Edmure Tully removed from his familiar spot on the gallows. Finally, he made Edmure an offer he couldn't refuse: walk into Riverrun and concede the castle, then become a comfy prisoner at Castle Rock with his wife and child. Or walk in, continue to hold out, and Edmure's child will be sent to him via trebuchet. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
Well, Ryman Frey, Lord of Riverrun, is furious. It seems Brynden Blackfish Tully swam away, and in the chaos of the castle changing hands, nobody noticed until the next morning. Former Lord of Riverrun, Edmure Tully, is pleased with this loophole he found in Jaime's plan. He was to relinquish the castle, no mention of what to do with his uncle.
Jaime's threat of a painful death at Castle Rock snaps Edmure back to reality quick enough. They raised the river gate just enough for the Blackfish to swim away, but the gate still appeared to be closed. So far, Sir Brynden remains at large, despite a large search party hunting him. Jaime fears the Blackfish will continue the fight from the shadows, and Aemon worries the Blackfish will return for his castle.
Jaime enjoys the view from Lord Hoster's Solar, but Lord Aemon continues to whine. Jenna is getting annoyed with her husband, and the couple eventually depart. Jaime and Edmure shoot the breeze, seemingly companionable, until Edmure says that he despises Jaime. Jaime doubles the guard that will accompany Edmure to Casterly Rock. He worries that Lord Beric might try to free Tully. A guard announces that Lady Sybell Westerling and daughter Jeyne are without.
The two are shown in. Jeyne is a willowy teenager. She has a scab on her forehead, and Jaime inquires about it. Sybell explains that Jeyne would not give up her crown. Jeyne confesses that she loved Robb. Jaime wants to know if Jeyne is expecting. Sybell answers in the negative, that she took care of it. Jeyne flees. Jaime announces that the Westerlings have their pardon, and Sybell's brother Rolf Spicer is now Lord of Castamere. What more do they want? Sybell wants good marriages for her kids, as Tywin promised.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Jaime thinks she's grasping and pushing her luck. Her son Reynold was at the Red Wedding. She wants news of him if he lives, and the joyful marriage Tywin proposed. Jaime explains that Joy Hill is his uncle's bastard. Sybell bridles. Jaime snaps at the turncloak bitch and sends her away. Jaime wonders how much Lord Gawain knew of his wife's scheming. The next day, Jaime rides out with Edmure's entourage, redoubled again at the last minute. Edmure and Jeyne are to be murdered if bandits threaten to rescue either of them.
After he sees the party off, he heads to Edwin Frey, who is arguing with Walder Rivers. They have heard that Edwin's father, Ryman Frey, was ambushed and hanged with all his men on the way back to the twins. The outlaws are growing bold. Edwin thinks his brother Black Walder has had a hand in this. Jaime demands all the prisoners from the Red Wedding. The Freys want money. Jaime refuses. They do know of Sir Reynold's fate. He had surrendered, but then took several quarrels trying to save Greywind and fell into the river.
The next day, the Freys are gone. The field a mess where they'd been. He burns the gallows. The next stop for Jaime is Raventree. Lord Titus Blackwood is besieged by the Brackens. That night, he spars with Sir Ilan Payne. Better than most nights, but still second best to the executioner. They drink and Jaime confides his King's Landing concerns. The Kettleblacks need to be unseated.
Next day the search parties return empty-handed. No Blackfish, but they had seen wolves led by a huge she-wolf. Jaime wonders if the wolf might be the one that attacked Joffrey. The Lords of the Trident ask to return to their lands. Strongbow wants to go back to Darry as he promised. Jaime gives them all permission. Jaime considers that the war is almost won. Dragonstone has fallen. Storm's End would soon. Stannis was welcome to the Wall. If the Boltons don't defeat him, the Winter would.
He thinks about going home once the Blackfish is captured. He also thinks about admitting to and being a father to Tommen. Jaime thinks Kevin could be convinced to rejoin the small council if Cersei could be set aside. Littlefinger could also be an option. The Riverrun garrison leaves the next day. They were given 3 days' provisions and left with a vow never to attack Riverrun. Sirs Desmond Grell and Robin Ryger choose the Black instead. Lord Emmon then gives a long speech to the remaining citizens of Riverrun. The singer listens in. Jaime talks to him. Jaime considers him a hedge harp of about 50. Riverrun seems like a place to stay for the winter. Jaime tells him to please Jenna. She's the secret. The man introduces himself as Thomas Evans.
Jaime dreams of a woman. He thinks it's Cersei, but it isn't. She has the Lannisters' green eyes. She's his mother, but Jaime has only one hand. But in his dreams, he always has two. Tywin's fiercest wish was that nobody ever laughed at the Lannisters. Jaime argues that he and Cersei met all their father's wishes, but his mother sheds a tear. Jaime wakes to snow blowing in through an open window. Bad news for the last crops of summer. He sees the youngsters snowball fighting. The Riverrun Maester Vyman arrives with a note from King's Landing. Jaime reads it. It is from Qyburn and Cersei. He must come at once. He issues no response and hands it to Peck to burn. First of all, can I just say what a complete buffoon Emmon Frey is? and I don't know. Jenna Lannister seems like, you know, she seems like the sort of good side of the Lannister coin. You know, smart and acerbic and, you know, sort of like wouldn't suffer fools, but here she is suffering the biggest fool of all.
Right.
I can't believe she hasn't whipped him into shape.
He's a bit of a caricature, you know.
Yeah, he is.
He's almost hard to take as a real person.
Yeah, his concerns. I mean, like he bleats about his concerns about, you know, protecting Riverrun, but it's like it's an impenetrable castle. The previous occupants just showed how difficult it was to overcome it. You know.
Yeah. I guess you could see why Tywin was so offended when his father agreed to this marriage between
that's right,
Aemon and Jenna. He was proven right, I'm afraid.
How close is Aemon in the? I'm absolutely sure you can't answer this off the cuff, but let's test you anyway. How close is Aemon in line of succession to the twins?
I believe he was the second son of Walder, which means
right.
Steveron's family.
All of Steveron's male heirs are ahead of him.
Yes, which are dwindling, as we learn in this chapter.
Right, yeah.
Steveron died. Ryman's now dead, so that leaves Edwin, Blackwalder, and Peter Pimple. No, Peter Pimple died, so it's just Blackwalder and Aemon.
Edwin is convinced that Blackwalder's going to kill him, so...
Right, and they probably have... I don't know off the top of my head if they have sons as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a point. He's not that far away. I mean, it could happen.
Right.
He ends up being Lord of the Twins as well.
Yeah.
Edmure shows a bit of spine, you know. I mean, he has, you know, we said it and we meant it. It was an offer he couldn't refuse. He really couldn't refuse it, and so he didn't refuse it. He did what was asked of him, but he found a loophole and got his uncle out of there, which is going to be problematic for the future hosts of the Riverlands to have such a large character roaming free and able to rouse the opponents of the Lannister lackeys that now rule the Riverlands.
Right, because first of all, we know that the Riverland fealty to the Lannisters, the River Lords, is paper thin. You know?
Right, and to the Freys too. Yeah, I mean, the Freys have burned their bridge. Ironically.
Yeah. But, you know, it seemed like it at this moment, or at least with the knowledge that they have, it seems like the right decision to surrender the castle. They're an island surrounded by enemies. But
yes, but nobody's coming. Last time they were besieged, there was always the chance that the Northern Army might come and rescue them. Now there is no army rooting for the besieged here.
But news out of King's Landing could possibly change things. The Lannisters, you know, with Cersei being arrested for and brought up on all the serious charges that she's been brought up on, you know, this could lead to the Lannisters being disgraced, possibly Tommen's claim to the Iron Throne debunked. You know, maybe winds could change. So, and we also know, though, that the threat was, I will send your newborn child to you in a trebuchet if you don't surrender the castle. But that would require the Freys to go along with that as well, because his wife Rosalind is giving birth in the twins. They would have to give the baby up to the Lannisters. So
we'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah, I think they probably would, because it's a Tully. Yeah, sure, it has Frey blood, but I think they would, well, the Freys will do whatever they're paid to do.
Well, I guess so. Although, yes, very much so. But also, one thing that Walder holds in oddly high regard is family.
Family. So, that is true. That is true. But it's interesting you said about the potential for a sort of like a winds of change blowing through here, because I wonder if that makes... I wonder if Brynden and Edmure, say, had full knowledge of what we know. They might have gone, let's hold out here. Or would it actually make them go, you know what, let's give this up for now? If the winds change as much as we think they might, we might be able to walk back in here by royal decree of Stannis Baratheon, who might reinstate us, you know, and then no one's gonna fight for Aemon Frey.
Right. So, which is his fear.
Right. So that's the calculus. You might actually think it's easier to give up the castle now if we think things could change than it would be to just be besieged here until things change.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's him being when I say him, I mean Edmure being a captive in Casterly Rock makes it tough for him specifically.
True, but I mean, until this chapter, he was sort of vaguely promised good accommodations in Casterly Rock. And if the disgrace is to the point where Tommen is ousted for not actually being Robert Baratheon's child, and Stannis is brought back, what do the Lannisters gain by murdering Edmure at that point? They might want to start rebuilding some of their reputation,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But about the Blackfish, you were saying, that he's out there now, and he is quite the character. And he is quite a character in Westeros, but he's also quite a character in this story. He's a great character. And
and you can imagine him. I mean, we know that a lot of the Riverlands lords are on the cusp of rebellion, and if he just sort of like does a little wander around visiting some of these guys, you can imagine a full-blown insurrection happening any time here. He is the match that will light this fire.
And let's not forget, he is Brynden Tully. His niece is Catelyn Stark, who is currently the reanimated Catelyn Stark that is leading the Brotherhood Without Banners. I wonder if we'll get some sort of team up here between
reunion.
Brynden and the Brotherhood led by Catelyn.
Yep, possible.
Yeah, that would be really neat. First of all, if that happened, that would be really neat.
Yeah. and you're hypothesizing here because you have absolutely no idea where that's headed, right?
Right, I don't. Yeah.
Right. God, it's so weird to be towards the end of some of these story threads.
It is. Yeah. Wait till we get the spoilers.
We don't know any better than you. Well, I gotta say, for me, one of the most interesting parts of this chapter was the whole Westerlings part. It's so fascinating, and one of the fascinating parts about this is the rumor, the sort of fan gossip about whether or not this really is Jeyne Westerling, or if this is an imposter. Now, the evidence for this not being Jeyne Westerling is pretty thin, as is this Jeyne Westerling. The Jeyne Westerling that Robb married was full-hipped, and this one is willowy, and it feels like it may not be the same human being. This one is also very young. I think the original one was young too, but
we've got the I put the descriptions in here between how Kat described her in A Storm of Swords and how Jaime describes her in this chapter. If you want to read them.
So Catelyn said she was pretty undeniably, with her chestnut curls and heart-shaped face and that shy smile, slender but with good hips. And now Jaime said Jeyne was a willowy girl, no more than 15 or 16, more awkward than graceful. She had narrow hips, breasts the size of apples, a mop of chestnut curls, and the soft brown eyes of a doe. Pretty enough for a child. I mean, there's enough similarities there.
Yeah, it comes down to the hips, right? I mean, everything else
comes
is
down
just
to the hips.
How two people might describe someone, the same person, differently.
You're just choosing different elements to describe,
Right.
But those hips are different. And
the hips don't lie.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's just like hitting a home run off the tee right there. So that's all the evidence we've got. But there is, all right, there's evidence for why it might not be the same Jeyne. What on earth would be the motive? Well, there's one obvious.
That's the question.
Obvious thing that would make a motive, which is the real Jeyne Westerling, wife of Robb Stark, is pregnant. Because the Westerlings would absolutely know that Jaime Lannister would not stand for that, and she'd be in that trebuchet day one. He would absolutely kill her because he could not afford that baby to come into existence.
At least the baby would.
Awful.
He would at least have the baby killed, no doubt.
Yeah. But I mean, he wouldn't even let the baby be born, I don't think. I mean, he would have to.
Right.
So That's a possible motive.
Yeah, he states how dangerous it would be if she were to be pregnant. He says to Sir Forley Prester, I think, a wolf in her belly is more dangerous than the blackfish.
Right. And when they're talking about marriages for Sybell Westerling's children, he forbids Jeyne from getting married for 2 years.
2 years,
2
right.
years to make sure there's enough of a gap that no way any child that comes out of her is Robb Stark's. So yes. He is very worried about that, and clearly he would do something dramatic if it turned out to be true.
Now, there's a little bit of evidence to support the possibility of a pregnancy, only in that Jeyne told Kat that Jeyne's mother, Sybell, was giving her a concoction to help bring about a pregnancy. But Sybell tells a different story about that concoction here in this chapter.
Right. And honestly, I always thought Jeyne was being duped then.
Yes, me too. I think we discussed it at the time.
Right. If I'm Sybell Westerling, I am not encouraging issue here. I am discouraging it at all costs.
Yeah, right.
Just while I'm hedging my bets. And well, actually, that comes to the bigger question here is, how long was Sybell Westerling hedging her bets? It feels like here she's claiming that this was a plan all along in many ways. But at the same time, Jaime says the Westerlings have their pardon, as if there was a crime committed here by the Westerlings, for which they've been pardoned.
Yeah.
So which way is it? And also, he gets it second. He gets the story of the Westerling Tywin Lannister agreement from Sybell Westerling with no Tywin to countermand it.
Yes.
And it seems very favourable if they were in fact traitors who came back into the fold.
It's really good, moving on your feet here.
Oh yeah.
If that's the case, my guess is Jeyne and Robb started organically. Their situation was organic. When things looked like they weren't going the Stark's way, when Robb was, it couldn't even be when Robb was killed, because at that point they'd been trying for a while, and she was already giving Jeyne the concoction. Mm-hmm. So maybe what she was doing was hedging her bets, preventing them from getting pregnant until one side or the other won. So she could always...
Right, stop giving her the tansy tea and let her get pregnant. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. Now, the for me, the biggest thing that goes against all of that sort of theorizing of this big... Well, just the Jeyne part. I really don't know what to think about the Westerlings plotting with Tywin Lannister. I think some of that is clearly true, but I don't know how much. And certainly, we've only got Sybell Westerling's version of events here. But is this the real Jeyne? The behavior of this person in this chapter is the behavior of the real Jeyne Westerling. Yeah, either this is a cousin who looks a bit enough like her to pass for her, who is doing an astonishing job of acting like Jeyne Westerling, but also a complex job. Because the thing is, if you were to put a cousin in place and say, all right, here's how we want you to act, you wouldn't tell her to act like this. You would tell her to act contrite about her mistake in falling in love with a wolf. But that's not what this person is doing. This person is saying to Jaime Lannister, I loved Robb Stark and I hate you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the hip size could be personal opinion, One person might think good hips or narrow hips. Another person might think narrow hips or larger hips. It's just personal opinion. But
she could have lost weight in grief. She might have, in her grief.
Very much so, yes. But there's one small detail that makes me think that this is this theory that this isn't actually Jeyne Westerling completely debunked, is the fact that George Martin himself has publicly said that the inclusion of Jaime's hip description of Jeyne was a mistake, and the line has been taken out of newer editions of A Feast for Crows.
Oh, all right, we're cutting all this out.
Yeah. But it's fun to talk about the fact that...
Man, that's a hell of a strand to the story he accidentally created.
Right.
Because it's a really interesting idea. And you know what? As we talked about it, here I am now. I'm not going to theorize even more about this mistake, yeah? Sybell Westerling really might have been giving her... All right, let's make Sybell Westerling the biggest schemer in the whole of the world of Ice and Fire, yeah? She was giving her a concoction to promote pregnancy because she had in her back pocket a cousin who looked a bit like Jeyne, and she was going to whisk Jeyne off, and she's eventually going to be the mother of the King of the Seven Kingdoms. The grandmother of the King of the Seven Kingdoms. You know?
At least King in the North.
Right. It's like, wow, she's playing the big game if she's doing that. And in the meantime, she's coaching the cousin to do this astonishingly brave performance, which you should not do.
She's showing her Meryl Streep films.
Exactly.
This is what true acting is, child. But speaking of Sybell, we finally get a Maggie the Frog and Sybell Spicer / Westerling connection here. Oh. We learned that Maggie the Frog was the grandmother to Sybell and Rolf Spicer, which is a pretty interesting little tie-in there. That's... it's kind of random that Maggie the Frog, who's been haunting Cersei's dreams since she was a child, just happens to be the grandmother of Jeyne's mother, Sybell. And in fact, some people think, going back to the scheming thing with Sybell, some people think that Sybell used a love potion on Robb because that was one of the things that Cersei mentioned that Maggie
could do.
Yes, those love potions.
Interesting.
So using Grandma's secret recipe to get Robb to fall in love with Jeyne.
Did Cersei do something to Maggie?
No, not physically. What were you thinking?
Maybe the TV show. Maybe she did something horrible to Maggie in the TV show.
Not that. I think they just ran. Right?
Ran away? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling she did something bad to her in the TV show, because then that would give another thing of sort of revenge for my grandmother sort of thing.
Yes.
I will have a grandson who is the child of the enemy of Cersei, who will bring her down. Heck of a plan, Sybell.
Yeah, it is. But and then her brother Rolf was made Lord of Castamere, and it's like by choice. Because that castle was destroyed by Tywin. Is made famous in the song "The Reigns of Castamere." You could just claim a pile of rocks, Lord of that pile of rocks over there.
I just want so Rolf to be taken to Castamere by the person whose job on the sort of Lannister small council is realtor to the Lannisters.
Right. You're gonna love Castamere.
Yeah, Rolf's kicking the stones. It's like, it doesn't look very good. It's got a lot of potential, let me tell you.
Right.
One last thing about Sybell. Okay, so let's get rid of the stuff that George Martin has ruled out. Is she just lying? Is she just lying to Jaime? Did Jaime have any evidence that the Westerlings? What are they claiming that they did? They weren't involved in the Red Wedding. They didn't bring Robb down.
No, I guess their claim is we got Robb to break his vow with the phrase.
I hear you.
But still, that would require premeditated effort to get Jeyne to have Robb fall in love with Jeyne.
You came up with it. Maggie the Frog's
love potion.
Love potion
maybe.
number 9. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, fascinating. But my question is it possible that Sybell is just making all this up? Her daughter just fell in love with Robb, and Sybell was like, oh God, I've got to go with her now and change sides, and the Lannisters are going to kill me. And then when the Lannisters find me, I say, ha ha! See, we brought them down from within.
It was the plan the whole time.
We get Castamere and good marriages.
That's all we want. for all of our hard work.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other Westerling news. We had discussed Reynold Westerling's sad fate and spoilers. And Sybell is hoping.
So he's the one who was hit by multiple crossbow bolts and fell into the river.
Yes, trying to free Greywind.
Not found.
Yes.
Lost, but presumed dead. Yes.
Presumed dead. Yes. And that's sad. He seemed like a good kid, and he was didn't seem to be aware of his mom scheming or anything. He just wanted to, be a good brother-in-law to Robb, and but also Jaime seems really bothered by Sybell's scheming, and he says to her, "Your daughter is worth 10 of you. Stay away from me until we ride out." And I was thinking, he's a Lannister. Scheming should be what he eats for breakfast.
but I think he does also. I mean, Sybell turned her coat twice, right? She really went over to the Starks and then she really came back, and he knows that deep down that that's what's gone on here.
Possibly.
Jeyne is madly in love with the dead Robb Stark, and he appreciates that. I think he appreciates the loyalty.
She's being real.
Those you love,
exactly. He was also bothered by the reaction of Sybell to Joy Hill marrying, I think as Reynold was, who she was actually supposed to marry. And Joy Hill is Jaime Lannister's, who was both Tyrion and Jaime's favorite uncle. They both mentioned that separately, that he was their favorite uncle.
But his bastard daughter
is
right?
Joy Hill, yes.
Right.
And he
don't you think
seemed to have a fondness for her.
Don't you think the natural born surname for the Westerlands should be Gold?
I can see that. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of gold in Casterly Rock.
Hill seems a bit dull, really. For
it does. Yeah. I blame all this on the wording that she claims that Tywin used, that Reynold should have the joy of him.
Yes.
Regarding the marriage plan for Reynold. Because I think it's a major misunderstanding, because Tywin told Tyrion when he was listing the concessions that he had to make to Lord Walder for the Red Wedding that Joy Hill was to marry a natural-born son of Walder's. So, and Sybell didn't seem to think.
Did Sybell Westerling have an affair with Walder Frey? Is there no depths she won't plumb?
It doesn't seem that she knew that this Joy was a Hill, because she was stricken by the idea of her son marrying a bastard. So it seems like maybe the use of the word joy was not meant to mean Joy Hill, but Jaime misinterpreted that to mean Joy Hill.
Yeah, so. It's funny. That's the one part of this chapter that made me think she really had talked to Tywin about this, because it felt like he was actually specifically saying someone Joy Hill. But you're right. The whole thing is a bit confused, because it's definitely potential for her just randomly choosing a word, Jaime latching onto it, and then her ending up mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Ryman Frey died, and I knew this. I knew this was coming because I listened to this podcast that has a spoiler section, and you told me about it. Now the thing is, there's two ways of thinking about that. One is a gang of 12, 15, 20 men riding in the Riverlands is vulnerable because the Riverlands are a lawless mess.
Yes.
But then the flip side of that is Jaime talks to the singer who's hanging around Riverrun after this settles down, and that's our friend Thomas Evans, who is known to be a member of the Brotherhood Without Banners.
Conveniently so, yes.
And he was aware that Ryman left, and he also knows that Ryman was very much a Frey, and therefore...
And involved in the Red Wedding.
That's what I was going to say, involved in the Red Wedding, exactly.
Right.
So he would be on the very long list of targets of one Lady Stoneheart.
Absolutely, and...
Who, by the way, just one more interjection. I know you've got a good sentence to come. No. But Arya should take a page from her mother's book here, because her mother is getting through her list a lot quicker than Arya is getting through hers.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Of course, she's got a band of brothers to
that helps.
Help.
That helps.
Yeah. But one more connection here is that Edwin says that Ryman was hanged near Fairmarket along with all his men. And in the previous Brienne chapter, when she's talking to Thoros of Myr before she meets with Stoneheart, after she wakes up from, being passed out, and then Stoneheart summons her, Brienne says to Thoros, "You told me she'd gone to Fairmarket." And he said, "She did, and now she's back." So she was recently in the same town in which Ryman was hanged. Mm-hmm. So, but Edwin doesn't think that it was a brotherhood without banners. Edwin thinks that it was his own brother, his younger brother, Black Walder, that was the one. So who killed Ryman Frey? Obviously, you and I think the leading contender is the Brotherhood without banners because Tom of Seven's presence here in this chapter. And he was in the previous Jaime chapter. He was the singer that he brought with him to sing the Rains of Castamere to Edmure.
Yes.
So then we've got this. Edwin thinks it was his younger brother, Black Walder. And he definitely has motive. Now he's only one spot away from being heir, and that's Edwin's spot. So, and Jaime tells us that he knows that there's bad blood between these brothers. And it's rumored that Black Walder had slept with both of his brother's wives, both Edwin's and his younger brother, Peter Pimple, who died in that epilogue with Merritt. But some also believe that Black Walder killed his grandfather Stevron because he was with Robb and Stevron at the Battle of Oxcross, and Stevron had just taken a minor wound and then was found dead 3 days later. So if he's knocking off family members, it's possible he could have started with his grandfather and now moved to his father.
And next his big brother.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say is the biggest... that's a good piece of evidence about where Lady Stoneheart was, but it could just be coincidence. Who knows?
Could be, absolutely.
Given that George Martin apparently does things by accident occasionally.
Occasionally.
We can no longer bank on anything here. But the real piece of evidence that points to the Brotherhood without banners is the presence of Thomas Evans. But I wrote it in the notes. I said, you really don't need a mole in the camp to explain away a death. It could just have been randomly bandits on the road. The bandits on the road would likely be the Brotherhood without banners. The Brotherhood without banners might have caught him and then contacted Lady Stoneheart. I just don't know why. Well, if I was the Brotherhood without banners and I was following Lady Stoneheart's instructions to hunt down those responsible for the Red Wedding, I would just be camping out on every road through the Riverlands, just waiting.
You got
pretty
a good
much anyone
shot.
who comes along is going to be a Frey. Yeah, exactly.
Right. 1 out of every 5 people in the Riverlands is a Frey, probably.
Whereas they've got Tom now on the inside of Riverrun.
Useful.
Why risk blowing his cover to get word out when you could just put men along the road to the Twins?
Yeah. So about Tom, so there's 2 options here. Either Tom has infiltrated Riverrun, which is useful because that's the former home of the Tullys. Their new leader is a Tully by birth. Or Thoros painted a pretty sad state of the Brotherhood since Beric Dondarrion died. So possibly could Tom have just left the Brotherhood and is now looking for honest work?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely possible. But I would be, if Edmure Frey was aware of Tom's stories, he would not invite him for the winter, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
We'll settle for Netflix. We don't need a singer. Thank you.
But one other possibility, real quick, about who could have killed Ryman Frey. There's another person who's also missing in the Riverlands who would also like to get retribution on the Freys, and that's the Blackfish.
But he wasn't missing when Ryman was killed.
Well, we don't know what... he was missing the day that the castle fell. So who knows where he could have gotten to in that time? It had only been a couple days.
But it was all his men. I mean,
right. The Blackfish would have had to find a group of people to help him to pull this off. So yes, there might be a timeline issue there.
Yeah. Still though, worth thinking about.
Yeah.
All right. So then the rest of the chapter is sort of Jaime sort of like ruminating and thinking about King's Landing. And he's obsessed about Cersei kissing Kettle Blacks, Osmond in particular, and because Osmond is the one who's a member of the White Cloaks, right?
Yeah,
Osmond is the White Cloaks.
And he's also the one that Tyrion told Jaime about. Tyrion didn't tell Jaime about Osney or Ostred for that matter.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to whether Cersei kissed Osmond Kettleblack, but we can definitely speak to her of having kissed Osney Kettleblack.
Well, can we?
She did a lot more.
Yes, she did a lot more. I'm not sure she did the kissing. That's what I'm saying.
Well, there's in the chapter where she proposed the plan to bed Marjorie and kill Jon.
It does finish with a kiss.
It's sealed with a kiss.
Yeah.
So I know she at least kissed him on that instance.
Yeah. Jaime wonders what he should do about Cersei. You know, he's thinking that he could get Kevin to come back and be hand of the king, and he could announce himself to Tommen as his own father and raise Tommen. And all he would have to do to make these two things happen is to get Cersei out of the picture. Ilyn indicates that he should just kill her. Ilyn only has one trick in his bag. You know?
Right. He's not a very nuanced guy.
he is the hammer, and everything in the world is a nail.
Right. Yeah, and Jaime rejects that idea, but he doesn't reject that idea on the grounds that I could never do that. I love my sister. He rejects it on the grounds of I could never do that because Tommen's already lost a lot of people, and that would hurt him. So I felt that was also that revelation leading up to the action at the end of the chapter with the ignoring and burning of the letter. I think it might be saying something about how he currently feels about his sister.
I wonder how much trauma Tommen has actually gone through, because surely Robert Baratheon barely registered on Tommen's life.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he can't have spent much time in his presence. You know, I mean, the man was a drunken boor. You know, he would not have been playing with his kids. Cersei, I don't know. I mean, she does love him, but in her own way, and it's not always nice for Tommen.
No. In fact, Jaime thinks, when I get back, I'm going to have to figure out how to get Tommen away from Cersei so that he doesn't end up like another Joffrey.
Right. And then Joffrey's the other one. Joffrey's the other death in Tommen's life. But I'm sure that's sad on some levels for Tommen, but I'm sure there's some levels of Tommen that are like, thank God.
Right.
Maybe Marcella being away is a bigger aspect.
Oh, yeah, I bet it really is. Yeah. I bet it really
because he was close. He was genuinely close with Marcella. But all the others just feel like they're backdrop characters to Tommen's life. I think he'd care more about his kitten than any of them, really.
Yes, you're probably right.
Yeah. So, Jaime, go ahead. Chop her head off. That's what I'm saying. In conclusion, yeah.
But promises are being made good all over the place around this chapter. We've got, we start off with Strongboar. He wants to return to Derry to kill the Hound, as he promised.
Who did he promise? He promised some lady, didn't he?
Yeah, Edmure Frey / Lannister. But I think that marriage was annulled, so now she's back to Edmure Frey. And I just wonder if
why was she Frey? Because she
was Merritt's son, and
she wasn't Merritt's son. I'm sure she wasn't Merritt's son.
Mariah Derry, Merritt Frey, had a child, had multiple children, but one of them was Edmure. This is getting really convoluted. But it's caused me to wonder about a love triangle forming in Derry, because Jenna mentioned that she thinks Martin Lannister, who's Lancel's younger brother, will be next up to marry Amy.
Not George Martin Lannister. Just
right.
One of our Discord listeners gets fooled by that every time.
And Jaime thinks that Amory, is already having relations with Harwin Plum, a.k.a. Hardstone, and it seemed kind of like Strongbor might have been interested in Amy as well when
seemed like
they were
it to
in
me.
Derry. Mm-hmm. Or possibly he's interested in Mariah. She's a widow. She's available as well. So
if he's willing to go and kill the Hound for her, he's definitely putting it all on the line because that guy's dangerous.
Except for that he's also seemingly dead.
Well, apart from being dead, yeah.
Yeah.
But Strongbor doesn't know that. He's threatening to kill the living Hound.
Both iterations of the Hound are seemingly dead.
And you're right, there's another promise being kept. Jaime wouldn't take up arms against the Tullys and refused to torture any of them once the castle was surrendered. They're all given their freedom with a promise that they're supposed to keep of not lifting arms against their new overlords.
Yeah, Jenna's not exactly confident in that being followed through upon. But this also, I mean, that's the promise that he made to Edmure. But in a larger sense, he did not take up arms against the Tullys or the Starks to do this. Yep. So, so promises everywhere, I guess.
Although firing a Tully Frey baby across the things would have counted, I feel.
That would have counted, yes.
So it's snowing in the Riverlands, and that is bad news, I think, for the prospect of famine across the land here, because that means that the hoped-for final crop isn't going to be brought in. I don't know if many people were growing things in the Riverlands. It seems like such a mess, but... Absolutely,
yeah. This war might have doomed many more to die than who died in the fighting. And, of course, they're very heavily... mostly going to be innocents, because the lords and ladies and the great houses are likely better stocked than the small folk.
And here's the kicker. So Riverrun is stocked for 2 years, but the surrounding civilians are going to try and pile in, and they're going to find a much less sympathetic lord in Edmure Frey than they would have done in Hoster or Edmure Tully.
Yes, that was one of Edmure's biggest weaknesses, was his heart. Yeah. He wanted to protect every one of his people.
Yeah. So the letter that arrives from Qyburn and Cersei. So can you remind me, was this letter written by Qyburn and he quoted Cersei, or did they both contribute to the letter?
So the way the Cersei chapter ended, it sounded like, write a letter with this content from me to Jaime. But the description of the letter in this Jaime chapter says something along the lines of, Qyburn's words were terse and to the point, and Cersei's were fevered and fervent. But then he reads the words, and I went back and compared between the two chapters. They're the exact words that Cersei asked him to write, including the "I love you" 3 times.
Yeah, I wondered. So, do you have the words handy?
The words are. Come at once, she said. Help me, save me. I need you now as I have never needed you before. I love you, I love you, I love you. Come at once.
Yes. Okay. So once again, this is the John Arryn school of giving feeble, half-assed messages when you should be stating the actual truth.
The seed is strong.
Exactly. So how about this alternative text for Cersei? I have been imprisoned by the High Septon. I face execution. Please come.
Yeah, right. Much more to the point. You'd think Qyburn, being, a former maester, would have added that. P.S.
Except, I think Qyburn doesn't want Jaime to come back. I think he wants to get his Frankenstein's monster back into the game. He wants Jaime to stay away.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that could be. We didn't have to wait long for the response. That was just last chapter, so...
Yeah. This was throw it in the fire.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like a statement about his feelings toward his twin / lover. I just wonder if the knowledge of the infidelity with Lancel and Osmond Kettleblack and Moonboy, for all he knows, according to Tyrion, if is that the final straw with his own brother of the Kingsguard.
Yeah.
Or is the knowledge of his fighting limitations affecting him, and he's thinking, that's useless. She'll have to find someone else. There's nothing I can do for her.
Well, that's a point. That is a point. All right. Well, that's enough. How about some spoilers? I know if you're interested in spoilers, join us at the upper tiers of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer levels, and you can get the spoilers. And come quickly, because we're running thin, awaiting the next book. We are... Until we get the Winds of Winter, there will become a point where we don't know what's going to happen to these characters. All right. Well done. You got blood from a stone there. All right. To background, what do you have for us today?
Well, Jaime tasks Sir Forley Prester with overseeing Edmure's safe relocation to Casterly Rock. Jaime mentions that Forley has a bull's head on his surcoat and horns on his helm. That's because the sigil of House Prester is a large red ox on ermine. The head of the house is Forley's cousin, Lord Garrison Prester, and his seat is Feastfires, and it's located in the absolute tip of the peninsula that forms the nose of the face that you can see in the western coast of Westeros. So, obviously, the house is a western house with fealty to the Lannisters. It's said that their words are, well, just one word actually, tireless. And here's a fun fact about the Lannisters and the Presters. Jaime's great-uncle/grandfather, Jason, was married to Marla Prester. Now, Jason was Tywin's uncle and Joanna's father.
Right, yeah.
So they were both Lannisters.
Surprising with the television show, there were no Westerlings. Jane was rewritten and she died at the Red Wedding for sure. No question about it. Not replaced by anyone. There are a few minor differences. Edmure immediately relinquishes Riverrun, having been brought in. Brynden is forced to fight because he's right there.
Yeah.
Jaime is informed of Brynden's death, but we're not 100% sure that's true. He is informed of it. No real spine from Edmure like he showed here in the book. There are a couple of other major characters within Riverrun at the time. I'm going to say them. I mean, it's not a spoiler because it clearly doesn't happen in the book. But it's Brienne and Pod are in Riverrun, beseeching Brynden to escape with them and go help the Starks.
Oh, I vaguely remember this. Yeah.
Yep. He's moved by the letter he gets from the Stark child, but not to the point of surrender. So he does not surrender.
Okay. Good stuff.
Pedantry, I didn't get anything this time. How about some news and notes?
All right. Well, should we start with our unboxing?
Oh, yeah, let's unbox. That's good.
Right.
I'm excited about the unboxing.
Okay, so a little backstory. You all are going to get an audio version of a visual situation here.
How we do it. How we roll.
I'm going to, I usually keep my self view off, but I'm going to turn it on so I can make sure I'm actually showing Simon what I'm about to show him. So we received a package from a listener named Kelly. Thank you very much, Kelly. We haven't opened the box yet, but I'm sure whatever's in here is going to be lovely.
Unless it's Anthrax, in which case I'm glad it's Mackelly who's opening this.
Right.
Presumably, thank you, Kelly.
Yes. I have cut the tape, so you don't have to sit here and wait around for me to do that. So I'm going to open the box for here with Simon with me while you all are listening in. Okay,
I've only got Mackelly on the phone here, people, so it's very small. I'm very excited. There's packing material.
Look at you don't even know. Look at this. Game of Thrones playing cards.
Get out. These packs.
Yeah, one for you, one for me. Kelly, you don't even know. I'm not joking, not exaggerating. I play solitaire every single night while I'm watching TV. And I just use regular old bicycle cards. So, and I've been thinking, you know what? I should get some cool cards to play with. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. This is complete serious.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Kelly.
Wow.
Kelly. Was there a note?
In fact, there was a note. Thank you for reminding me. So Kelly wasn't able to include a note in the box, but she sent us a note via Instagram Messenger, and she said a lot of really wonderful things about the show and how it's affected her, which is awesome, and I thanked her very much in my response. But she said, what I sent to you both was something Game of Thrones related that I received as a stocking stuffer, and I was so obsessed I had to make sure both of you got your hands on it as well. Would love to hear what you think about it when you receive it. So, here you go, Kelly. This is what we think about it.
Live reaction. Thank you ever so much, Kelly. That's awesome.
Yes.
They will get serious use, I promise. Thank you.
Yes, I absolutely. I will use them tonight. When we finish this, I'll be playing solitaire within 30 minutes. So thank you so very much. We do have other news.
October the 15th will forevermore take on special meaning for A Song of Ice and Fire fans. Well, for those who happen to live in Bayonne,
yeah.
Bayonne, New Jersey anyway. That's the hometown of George Martin, has marked October the 15th as George Martin Day. As a further honour, the local public library named a room in the facility the George Martin Room for popular fiction. George was on hand for the ceremony, shook some hands, posed with a huge dragon mosaic on the wall of the library, gave a short speech. The speech was recorded and posted to YouTube. He basically said that all the awards he's won and lost, this is the most special to him. So that was nice of him to say that. I'm sure it's not true. I'm sure some of those big gongs he got in the Hollywood probably meant more to him.
Well, you know.
By the way, Kelly, we're serious. That's really nice, that gift. Thank you.
Yes.
What I got from my family for Christmas, crap. That was a nice gift. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I will try to remember to post the YouTube video of George Martin, his speech on our social medias, if I can recall to do that. And I mentioned this to you yesterday, and by the time this episode goes live, it will be out there. I've created a bit of a treat for everyone that I'm going to drop probably tomorrow that made me laugh. So I'm going to also put that on our social medias. But if you haven't seen it already by the time this airs, just go check out our social medias. It made me laugh. I could just say that.
Did you mention this to me yesterday?
I did mention it to you yesterday. And speaking of things that you can't remember. It's not even
worth making a joke about anymore, is it? It's just like, it's just taking his red time and forgot what Mackelly told him.
Speaking of things that you don't remember, we are going to have a very special guest joining us next week.
For the first time ever.
Or second. Jenny will be joining both of us for the final episode of A Feast for Crows. She was a part of this journey with the Feast for Crows, so it's only right that she's here when we close it down. So, yes, sure. Very exciting. Jenny will be with us next week.
Well, I am looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun because Jenny's a very nice person and she's very good at this. She knows her stuff.
She does.
I don't know if we can do it with 3 tracks, but I guess we'll find out.
There's just no way of knowing. We have nothing to base it off of.
It is funny because I do laugh about that, but I genuinely have zero recollection of doing that. I mean, just not even slightly. I mean, I believe you guys, but I've lost track of what episode it was. So a couple of times I've sort of vaguely gone back to try and listen to it. But I've never found it, so I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, Jenny would probably be able to tell you faster than I could. Because,
probably. But the thing is, it's kind of like, you'd think I'd have... See, we're having this conversation right now, yeah? I'm going to remember this for a while, yeah? It's, this is episode 270. It's happened before, but I'll remember aspects of this conversation. I am a complete blank on the fact that we did this with you and Jenny. It just... Like
it
water
happens.
On Teflon.
It happens. Sometimes someone will remind you of something and you'll be like, what? I mean, it happens to all of us. You're not alone. It might happen to you a little more than the rest of us, but
But anyway, we have a new Buzzsprout sustainer. Donnell has been generous to join us in the donation endeavour. Thank you. If you'd like to join Donnell in donating to our cause through Buzzsprout, head to our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com, and choose a donation level. We're very grateful, Donnell. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Donnell. That's really very generous and very kind of you, so we very much appreciate that.
All right, let's conclude this one. So, Jamie, achieved his end. He managed to end the siege of Riverrun relatively bloodlessly. Ryman Frey bought it, but no great loss to anyone. Not even his own sons seemed to care.
Right. And Jaime kept his word about not taking up arms against the Tullys and Starks. Almost.
Some mental scars.
The Blackfish is still at large, which could ruin the whole thing. You might have to take up
true.
arms against him, but to this point, he's still managed to hold it off.
Yeah. The Tully line survives because of all this as well. I mean, the Tully line could have come to an end. The Freys could have hung Edmure, and Brynden could have died in the fighting. But they both still live.
And it doesn't seem that help is coming for Cersei in the form of Jaime anyway. So is she going to end up using Boris Blunt herself in the trial by combat? I mean, she's pretty much staged it so that there's only two options, Meryn Trant and Boris Blunt.
But against each other might be the trick. One of them has to win.
Right. Would Jaime truly not ride to her rescue? You did point out that it was never stated, I'm going to die if you don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
So... But I just wonder if it's one of those things that he's going to ponder and sleep on and toss and turn and eventually decide, despite all our issues, I love my twin sister. I have to go help her.
But first of all, he's got to go and deal with Raventree Hall. I mean, like the Brackens and the Blackwoods, age old.
Right.
I mean, like, just one more major character having to go and stop their fighting. So... yeah, I don't know. I clearly they are broken as a duo, but the thing about siblings is you're never broken from your siblings completely, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to be a twin, you know. That's even more. And okay, I'm not even going to say the words. I can't even imagine what it's like to be a twin who's also your lover and mother of your 3 children.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Clearly, that's a bond that would take a lot of extricating, even if you fall out from one another.
Right. But like I said, maybe he knows he can't. He thinks if he keeps working on his fighting for a year, he'll be as good as his Squire Peck. So maybe he figures I'm no good to her. There's not even any point.
True enough. All right, next up, in the company of Jenny of Oldstones, we have the final chapter of A Feast for Crows, and that's a Samwell Tarly, which is always very exciting.
Yes, it is.
He's going to land. He's going to land where I want to live in.
That's right.
The Seven Kingdoms.
You have chosen the college town.
Uh-huh.
Well, it'd be very exciting both to wrap up A Feast for Crows and to have Jenny here to do it with us. So very excited, looking forward to that.
There's 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhall. There you can join us at any of the various sustain levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. The upper tiers get you the spoilers. Or you can make a donation at our website, as Danelle did, ghostsofharrenhall.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, first off, you can send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode's show notes. If you're interested in keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, such as whatever it is I'm about to post here in a day, you're going to want to check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal, or on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.